I don't like secrets, especially when they relate to my daughter. So I think it goes without saying that I wasn't too thrilled about this mysterious boy of hers. Bonnie said she'd met him at church, as if that would soften the blow any, but I ain't never once seen her talk to no boys at church, and I'm there every Sunday. Honestly, where she'd met him didn't matter much to me. Where she'd met him didn't change the fact that he was a boy. I know how young men are. In fact, as a former young man myself, I got a pretty good idea what's on their minds. My little girl must have thought she was grown, but 19 ain't grown. Not by a long shot. She may not have been a child yet, but she wasn't quite a woman either. And I'd be damned if I let some boy from church take advantage of her. I told Bonnie that I wanted to meet him, but she played coy. She said she'd make an introduction when he stopped by before making a point to slip out and meet up with him while we weren't looking. Then, when she got home, she'd play dumb.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daddy. He just left. You can meet him next time.
I'm probably not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I ain't stupid. I called that girl on her bullshit. Told her I wasn't okay with her hiding this mystery boy from me. I told her that if she thought this boy was something she needed to hide from me, then maybe she ought to reconsider whether it's a good idea to be running around with him. She just argued with me, told me I was being overprotective, told me that she was a grown-ass woman who could make her own decisions, and then stormed off into her bedroom to sulk. Normally, the sulk was her trump card. It was her silver bullet to make me cave to whatever she wanted. But not this time. Like I said, I'm not stupid. I know how young people are. They're dumb and they're horny. I don't really have any illusions that my girl was being particularly chastised by this mystery man of hers, and I mentioned as much when I tried to talk to her through the door that evening. I don't care much about what you're getting up to or who you're getting up to it with, I said. Boys, girls, whatever, I don't give a damn. You're my daughter and I still love you. But what I do care about is that you're safe. You're being smart about this. Not just using protection, but being smart about who you're spending your time with. Not all folks have the best intentions, and I don't want to see you get hurt.
I'm fine, Daddy. It's none of your damn business.
Goddamn girl swore at me. She actually swore at me. My daddy would have taken off his belt if I'd ever spoken to him like that. Hell, odds are he probably still would, even in his mid-80s. But I was better than that. I figured I'd try her again later when she'd calmed down a bit. So I made some dinner, left it out for her so she'd have something to eat when she got hungry, and fell asleep watching TV. When I awoke, it was to the sound of the front door closing. I sat up and noticed a light outside the window. Slowly, I got up and went over to take a look outside. Sure enough, there was Bonnie, making her way toward a car parked out on the street. The car in question was a pretty run-down old Ford sedan that hadn't so much seen better days as it had better lifetimes. I only caught a brief glimpse of the driver as she opened the door and got in with him. But there was one thing I was sure of. That wasn't a young man. This fellow looked to be somewhere in his late 50s to early 60s. He was bald, scrawny, and looked a little bit sick. But most importantly, he sure as hell wasn't from some local church. I consider myself to be pretty active in our local community and I've never once seen this particular son of a bitch in my life. The light was on from the open car door, and I watched as my daughter leaned in to kiss him on the lips. He put one pale, bony hand on her cheek, and he kissed her back. And for a moment, I thought his eyes shifted toward the house, toward me. For a moment, I could have sworn that he was looking right at me. Then, Bonnie was in the car, and they were gone, driving off to God only knows where. I watched as the car left and tried to get a look at the license plate, although it was too dark to see it clearly. All I could see were the taillights heading down the street, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do to stop them. This time, at least. But when Bonnie got back, I quietly resolved that I was going to have some words with her about this secret boyfriend of hers. God damn it, it felt like closing the barn door after the horse had already run out, but with God as my witness, I was going to make damn sure that geriatric son of a bitch never touched my daughter again. Yeah, when Bonnie got back, we were going to have words. Only, Bonnie didn't come back. The first 2 nights that she was gone, I figured that she was just mad at me. I figured that this was just some sort of tantrum. She was answering my messages, so I knew she was still somewhat alright, although her answers mostly just consisted of telling me that she didn't want to talk to me or that I didn't understand her new boyfriend. By the 3rd night, though, she'd stopped talking to me completely. Maybe it was just part of her tantrum. Maybe. But my girl wasn't really the type to shut me out completely. Even if she was mad at me, that seemed out of character. I sent her message after message. I even tried calling, but I got no answer. And the longer that silence went on, the more uneasy I felt about it. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. Clearly, this man she was with was some sort of creep. I mean, why else was he dating a goddamn 20-year-old? Young men may not typically have the most honorable of intentions when it came to girls, but at least their intentions didn't creep me the hell out. I'd only caught a glimpse of the man my daughter had met, and there wasn't a red flag that he didn't set off. Something was wrong. I knew it. I didn't know what, but I knew it was true. So by the end of the 3rd day, when I hadn't heard from Bonnie at all, I finally called the police. I got a buddy who works with him, a fella by the name of Jimmy, and he was more than happy to come by my place to sit down with me while I told him all about Bonnie's new boyfriend.
So, an old Ford sedan, right?
He asked, taking down notes as I finished going over the details with him. A Cortina, I think. Hard to make out the color in the darkness, but it was either green or blue. Maybe more of an aqua color. I don't know. Jimmy's brow furrowed and he looked up at me.
Old Aqua Ford.
He asked. Why, you know it?
I might. My sister goes to that church downtown, at Hanover's Hope. I've been there a few times with her. I can't say I enjoyed it. The place is kind of a dump, but I've seen a Ford like that parked out there. Pretty sure it belongs to the pastor, actually.
The pastor? I repeated. What can you tell me about him?
Not a whole hell of a lot. He's an old fella, a little unkempt, although that whole church is a goddamn pigsty if you ask me. I don't know how you can walk into a place like that and go, "Yup, this is the house of God, all right." The place ought to be condemned.
Interesting. I remembered how Bonnie had said she'd met this guy at church. Maybe that hadn't been entirely a lie. The name, Hope of Hanover, sounded familiar to me. I'd never been there myself, but I was sure I'd seen it before, and I was sure that some of Bonnie's friends went there. Very interesting. You got a name for this man? I asked.
Lebedev, Father Alexei Lebedev. Can't say I'd be surprised to learn the man was a freak,
Jimmy said. Lebedev, I repeated, before nodding. Looks like I'm going to be paying Father Lebedev a visit.
You want me to come with?
He offered. Jim, with all due respect, I ain't sure I should have a cop with me when I speak to this man. More so for my sake than for his.
I ain't offering as a cop,
Jimmy replied.
Bonnie's a good kid. I don't really want to see her get mixed up in a bad crowd.
I huffed, but couldn't entirely turn down that offer. All right, we'll take my car then. Jimmy had been right. Hanover's Hope Church was a goddamn mess, and it was a little shocking that the building hadn't been condemned yet. It really did look like it was on the verge of crumbling into rubble. I genuinely hoped that my daughter wasn't inside, but I wasn't too sure if such hope was really warranted at the moment.
Told you it was a dump,
Jimmy said, as he let me lead the way. I paused, noticing a familiar old Ford in the parking lot beside the church. If nothing else, Father Lebedev was here, so I could give him a goddamn peace in my mind. "Let's go," I said, pushing forward through the doors of the church. The inside wasn't any better than the outside. Actually, the inside was infinitely worse. This place stank of high hell. It smelled like something covered in shit had died and been left in the sun for several days. And unfortunately, I did not mean that metaphorically. That was an accurate description. I even caught Jimmy gagging a little as he stepped inside.
The hell is that?
He murmured.
What? Does it normally stink that bad? No, it doesn't.
He coughed and wheezed before pressing his sleeve to his face. I did the same as I wandered deeper into the church. I could see a few slight figures in the pews. They looked to be praying, which I thought was a little odd since there didn't seem to be any mass. The front of the church was empty too.
Lebedev,
I called, but there was no response.
you get the hell out of here right now, Lebedev. Right the fuck now.
Silence.
Bonnie, are you in here?
Daddy?
I heard her meek little voice behind me, and I turned to see her looking up at me from one of the pews.
There you are. The hell do you think you're doing? Leaving home like this, staying in this goddamn building, not returning my messages?
I stormed toward her to take her by the hand and lead her away, although Bonnie didn't move. And her skin... God, her skin felt so cold and clammy, it would almost been like touching a corpse, except she was covered in sweat.
The hell's going on with you?
I said softly.
Bonnie, the baby, what's wrong?
She gave me a weak smile.
I'm okay, Daddy.
She said softly.
I'm gonna be a mommy.
I felt a stab of panic in my chest.
Oh, hell. Look, Bonnie, we'll just get you up, okay? Let's get you home. We'll talk about this.
I tried to make her stand, but she pulled away from me, letting out a groan of pain as she did. I quickly let her go.
No, don't move me. I'm all full to bursting.
She laughed weakly, before suddenly and violently vomiting all over the floor. Even in the dim light, I could see the blood in her vomit, and I could see the other things writhing around in it too. They looked almost like worms.
The hell? Bonnie, what the hell is that?
Bonnie just raised her head and smiled at me, bile and blood dribbling down her lips.
Life.
She said, her words slurred and weak.
Jesus Christ. Dean, look at the folks in the other pews.
Jimmy said from behind me, and I paused, tearing my eyes away from Bonnie to look at the figures in the other pews. And as I stared at them, really stared at them, I realized that most of them weren't praying. Most of them were dead. It had been hard to tell with the way they'd been slumped over, but I could see the sickly color of their corpses, and I could see the puddles of gore lying at their feet, where their stomachs had split open, sending their entrails out. One man, just across the aisle from us, was in the middle of vomiting too, although his came out a lot more violent than Bonnie's had. His entire body retched and convulsed before he pressed himself forward.
Our Father,
He rasped.
our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. May thy kingdom come, thy will be.
I could see his stomach sagging outward as he tried to speak. His eyes bulged, almost in an expression of pleasure, as whatever happened to him happened.
Done. Yes, please.
His stomach seemed to split open entirely, and both Jimmy and I watched as his entrails spilled out onto the floor. and we could see the red worm squirming amongst his entrails. The man's eyes widened and twitched before going vacant. He was dead. We just watched a man die. But what the hell was this place? Beside me, I could hear Bonnie laughing weakly.
You see, Daddy?
She whispered.
Ain't that beautiful?
She pressed a hand on her own bloated stomach, and I looked down at her with a quiet, knowing horror. This all felt like something out of a nightmare. No, I said softly. No, baby. This isn't. No, it ain't.
It's beautiful.
She murmured.
Father Lieberden says it's the highest calling, the new birth. I'm gonna do God's work, Daddy.
No, was all I could say in response. My mouth was dry, my hands were shaking. I wanted to drag my daughter out of there, but I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted to stop this somehow, but I didn't. I didn't know what to do. Bonnie's eyes fluttered closed. Her breathing was growing heavier.
I felt them eating earlier. Coming soon. I'm gonna go to heaven, Daddy. I'm gonna...
She leaned forward, vomit dribbling past her lips. No, I sobbed, reaching out to put my hands on her to try and stop what was coming. But I could already see the bloodstains on her dress. Bonnie just smiled deliriously at me.
See, Mom.
Her belly split, and all I could do was scream as my daughter's body came undone. Her entrails sagged against the fabric before spilling out between her legs, and I couldn't look away. Her eyes fluttered closed, and that insane smile on her lips grew wider.
Mommy,
She said, her voice low and breathy.
did I do good?
I was screaming. I could feel tears filling my eyes, and I looked back at Jimmy, begging him to do something, begging him to somehow save my daughter, even though she'd faded away in my arms. The worms that had spilled out of her writhed around my shoes, and I could feel one of them biting my leg, but I didn't care. I just wanted my daughter back. But Jimmy stared at me, his expression almost vacant. Do something, goddammit. I snapped, and he remained silent. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw him. That son of a bitch. Alexei Lieberdev. I saw him smiling at me with those rotten yellow teeth of his. You, I rasped. You. I took a step toward him, only to pause when I noticed that Jimmy had taken out his gun and was keeping it trained on me.
Sorry, buddy.
He said.
Let's be cool here. If Father Lieberdev wants to chat.
Father Lieberdev can burn in hell. I spat, glaring at the man in question. You, what the fuck is this place? What the fuck did you do to my body? I granted her my blessing. Lieberdev replied calmly. His voice was low, hoarse, and raspy. She came to ask for a gift, and I've given it to her. The gift of bearing a new life. It's beautiful, isn't it? She's dead, you sick son of a bitch. And yet, through her death, new lives were created. Lieberdev said. More sickly-looking figures emerged from a set of doors by the altar. They grew closer to me, and Lieberdev regarded me like a salivating dog admiring a steak. Life is sacred in the eyes of God, he said. All life. Yours, mine, theirs. He gestured down to the red worms twisting at my feet. They may not be the most beautiful of creatures, but don't they too have a right to live? Not at the cost of my daughter, I snarled, fighting back the tears. I wanted nothing more than to grab this man by the throat and beat him until his skull collapsed. But Jimmy's gun made me think better of that.
Agree to disagree,
Lebedev said.
She came to me, not the other way around. She asked me for my gift. I gave it freely, and I will give it to you, too.
What? The figures who had joined Lebedev grabbed me by the arms, holding me in place, and I watched as that vile man approached me.
Don't fight,
Lebedev said softly.
What I'm about to do to you will be painful, but it will be a mercy. In a few days' time, you'll see your daughter again. This, I promise you.
He rolled up his sleeve, and I watched with a quiet horror as his skin split and crimson worms began to protrude from his flesh. No, I said, panic rising in my voice. No, wait. But there was no stopping what was coming. Lebedev put one hand on my shoulder and raised the other to my face. As the worms dug into my flesh, I could only scream. As they burrowed into my neck, into my body, there was nothing I could do to stop them. In the end, it wasn't the pain that made me pass out. It was the sensation of them sliding around beneath my skin. I felt my consciousness fading from me, and soon I was gone. When I woke up again, I was home. I thought at first that maybe this was all a bad dream, but no, I know it wasn't. Bonnie still hadn't replied to my messages. I keep messaging her, but I know she's never gonna respond. She's dead, and soon I will be too. It's been over a day since I got home. My stomach is bloating. I feel sick. Can't stop puking. I've considered trying to go to the hospital, but I don't know how much they'll be able to do for me, if anything. For all I know, the worms in me will just infect people there, and this parasite I got, it's gonna spread. My body ain't working right anymore, I don't think. I don't feel like myself. I don't know if they're inside my brain. It won't matter much soon anyways, I guess. I've got enough juice left in me to pour some gasoline around the kitchen and light the stove one last time. I'll go up with it, and that'll be it. Whatever this is, I ain't letting it spread, but I'll spread the word. People need to know what's out there. People need to know. Alright, I think I'm ready. Bonnie, I'll see you soon.